We watch Wakanda Forever here at Fatherly Fandom, so you know what time it is.
Hit that intro.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the
All right, everybody, if it's your first time, welcome. We're two dads who love all things fandom, from Star Wars to Star Trek, Marvel to DC, and Middle-earth on down to Westeros. We love it all, and we want to bring all of our insights and love of all things nerdy to you, our viewers. So if that's your cup of crushed-up, synthesized, heart-shaped herb, we're here for you, and you should definitely subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on all of our amazing reviews and content that we bring to all of our favorite fandoms out there. So thanks for tuning in, guys. My name is Chris Matthews, and I'm joined, as always, by my best friend and brother forever, Mr. Matt Parham. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I've really been looking forward to seeing this movie, watching it, and then reviewing it with you, my man. So let's get to it.
But let's dive into what the reviews are saying for this. I always pull up the Rotten Tomato scores for these things. So what did we get for our Rotten Tomato score here? So we got an 84% from 344 reviews from critics.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. And the audience score was 95%. So the audiences seem to enjoy this film more than the critics.
A little bit more, yeah.
What do these two dads think of this movie? Let's hit it, brother. Let's hit this this land of Wakanda. What'd you think?
We'll get right into it. So we're going to divide this up, as we often do with our
movies.
Go through a spoiler-free review, and then we'll get to the details after a little break. So, for me, I enjoyed the movie. I mean, I thought, just in the brief little marketing material that I had seen, that they very much were trying to hit the right tone. Ryan Coogler, very much a friend of Chadwick Boseman, and having to come back and do the sequel to the very popular Black Panther original movie must have been extremely hard, but I think that he did a great job with taking the storyline into new areas that some might be familiar to comic book fans. Some felt very natural for what had happened in real life, and we'll get into more of the details in there, but I want to say that overall, I liked the movie. I thought it paid respect to Chadwick's memory quite well, and that was ultimately the intention of this film. I think they delivered on that. What about you, Chris?
I think so, too. This is a heartfelt movie about the passing of this amazing actor. We see this throughout the film, and it's just dealing with that grief of losing somebody before their time, basically. And it's the same thing. And I think that they handled it pretty well in this movie with that, with the fact that, they originally designed this script with Chadwick Boseman in mind, that he was going to come back as Black Panther. And then with his passing, they had to kind of reinvent the whole thing and re-gear it towards different actors in the movie, different characters in this movie. And so I think that they did a pretty good job. I've definitely got my issues with some of it, and we'll get into that in the spoiler section here. But overall, I think this was a pretty successful outing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is a definite step up from Thor, Love and Thunder, and some of the other stuff that we've been getting lately with Marvel. Once again, I just really appreciate the character context and the layers and the storytelling that Ryan Coogler actually does. He's the director of this film. I don't know if we mentioned that, but he also wrote this film alongside Joe Robert Cole. And the story itself is by Ryan Coogler, but so a couple of credits there. Need to go where credit is due, right? But I absolutely enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really good. And, I struggled. I was trying to think before we got on here, Matt. I was like, do we really need to suggest this movie to anybody. And I was thinking, well, probably not. This is a very established universe that we have here. If you enjoyed Black Panther, the first one, I think that you'll get something out of this movie. Enjoy Marvel Cinematic Universe or the comics. If you're a Marvel fan, I think you're going to get a lot out of this. It's a lot of fun. So, yeah, just the regular fare for all of us that enjoy Marvel films. Who do you think would enjoy this movie? Do you think there was anybody else that I didn't mention, Matt?
No, I think that pretty much covers it, and I think
right.
obviously that's the target audience for this, is the massive amount of steadfast fans of the MCU. And, of course, many of them
Somebody's calling.
were probably brought into the MCU by the original Black Panther film, and so, of course, if you liked that one, I think this is going to be a great follow-up for you.
Absolutely. So, well, I don't really have all that much more to say in our spoiler-free portion here. Should we go into our thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle? That's kind of what we do in our spoiler-free section. So what would you give this? Would you give this a thumbs up, thumbs down?
I'm going to give it a thumbs up. I am going to caveat by saying that for my own taste, I like the original Black Panther film much more. Not that there was a ton that I found to be faulty with this film. We'll just get into why I didn't think that it necessarily was as good as it could have been or as good as the original. But ultimately still a good movie and a good inclusion in the MCU. I liked it much, much better than Thor, Love and Thunder and Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. So,
surprising.
Yeah, I'd say this is probably my favorite Marvel anything since the last Spider-Man.
Agreed completely. Thumbs up for me as well. And I think that I've enjoyed this one almost as much as Spider-Man No Way Home, but I think that one it sets a high standard. It's a high bar for Marvel films, but everything that has come since pales in comparison to what we're getting with this one. I did have a lot of hopes for this movie though too, so I think that my expectations were very high, and it probably wasn't going to be able to meet that regardless of what I saw on the screen. But it did a pretty good job. I enjoyed it. I'm in for these characters. I'm in for what we're going to see next in the Marvel Universe. So there you go. So we slide on in.
Yeah, I think it's time to get into the spoilers, buddy.
I have great things to show you, brother.
Look at this.
Ooh! Strike it.
Anyway.
Not that hard, genius!
All right, everybody, we're back. Spoiler time. So let's get into this movie and the nitty-gritty of it. First off the bat, I just want to say that, without the inclusion of Chadwick Boseman and everything, and how they had to reform and refit this whole movie, I felt that we had a little bit of an issue with the main character here, with Shuri. I feel like Letitia Wright did a really good job with this, but at the same time, that character was not set up to be the main protagonist of a movie, at least from the last one and everything else. It was very hard for me to get on her side and to understand her reasonings and to be there and to be present with that character throughout this movie. I felt it very difficult. And then they tried to bring in layers, and like she was upset and she wanted revenge, and she was kind of taking the path of Killmonger as well. And we see the whole thing when she takes the synthesized heart-shaped herb. She doesn't see her family. She sees Killmonger. And it was it was a lot. And it was like, okay, we're supposed to be thinking that she's tiptoeing on the bad side of things, and she's going to be a kind of a loose cannon here or something. And that doesn't end up happening. And and if you read the comics too, you know that Shuri does become Black Panther. She takes on the mantle at some point. So it was no surprise for me. I think that they were trying to make that surprise for the longest time in the marketing, and then they just gave up altogether. And so I think like shifting the focus onto Shuri during this film, it felt like we weren't ready for that just yet. And they did the best that they could with this whole thing. I think they handled Chadwick Boseman not being in the movie and killing him off in the beginning and being off camera too. I'm glad that they didn't do like any kind of CGI or re-editing of material that they presented before. So I thought that they handled that pretty well. But all in all, I wanted a stronger performance by the main protagonist. I wanted more of a focus on that, and I didn't feel like she carried the movie as well as she could have. Just my thought. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I actually, I think that her and Angela Bassett carried the film pretty well.
Oh my God, Angela Bassett just killing it with this performance. She was amazing, and I kind of feel like they should have taken this movie as her perspective. She should have been the main character dealing with this stuff, and because she's your definite link, and she was in there. But yeah, she's got the chops for sure when it comes to acting. Well done.
Yeah. Obviously, seasoned actress, but I thought, honestly, I felt like both the sister and the mother grieving story was told pretty well. I liked that they took Shuri to a more darker depth in her grief, and that she's just not handling it the same as her mother. Of course, everybody is going to be sad about it, but the fact that she is upset and raging and kind of rejecting her religion and just wanting to tear the world apart, I kind of felt to be a little authentic for people that go through grief like that. It's not all just about getting back to a happier state. Sometimes it's just getting over that sort of madness that you have about just hating what had happened. And so I liked that story. I liked that Namor was almost a temptation for her throughout the entire film to choose the wrong path. And then, of course, you have the great cameo by Michael B. Jordan.
Namor, played by Tenoch Huerta. Oh, my God. He knocked it out of the park, too.
Yeah, and we can talk about him in just a second, because I definitely got a lot to say about him. But
me too.
The fact that they let Shuri go to that other side, I appreciated and liked that storytelling. What I didn't like was the fact that at the end, in the battle there, that they just sort of made it this decision, okay, she's going to, choose the correct path, but that's somehow going to stop this entire war going on.
Yeah.
So, and we can go into the ending here in just a little bit, but yeah, so for me, that storyline all worked. Now, to like you were saying, Tenoch Huerta here,
Tenoch Huerta.
Huerta. Yeah.
Huerta, yes.
The inability to roll my R's pathetically.
Mi compadre.
Yeah, but did a great job
hermano.
as introducing Namor, the first Marvel anti-hero in history.
Yeah. I like how they retooled Namor as well, because in the comic books, he is from Atlantis and everything, and they took this, very much and made it like a Mayan culture, which was very astute and very smart. I think it was very good because you wanted to separate this character from Aquaman, which was very successful, with Jason Momoa and everything. So you had Atlantis, so it would kind of muddy up the waters if they replayed Namor. Literally.
Yeah.
If they replayed the same thing that they did for Aquaman.
Right.
So hats off to Ryan Coogler for reinventing this character in that. But also, just the fact that, this character is one of our first mutants, and they bring this to light as well in the movie as well, which I really liked. They're making more of those connections. The thing I'm a little, I'm nitpicking here. I'm very much nitpicking, guys. But the thing that kind of bothers me with is the proliferation of these things that we are supposed to see as rare, extremely rare around the world. And this is a problem they had with the first Black Panther movie as well. With the amount of vibranium that they have, just like caverns and caverns of vibranium all over the place. And, earlier in the MCU, we hear that this is a very rare metal. There's only a little bit that got out of Wakanda and whatnot. So it's something very special. But then when you see it in Wakanda, it's everywhere. It's all over the place. It's woven into the fabrics. It's everywhere you can think. It's not a very special thing anymore. And then we find out in this movie that they there's vibranium outside of Wakanda and
It's
everything.
all over
This
the
is-
ocean floor, apparently.
Apparently, and then, so there's this plant, this underwater plant that these Mayans took way back in the day, and for whatever reason, it made them not be able to live and survive on land and have to absorb oxygen through their skin in the water, and
Yeah, man,
all
it
this
got
stuff.
convoluted with
Very
the
convoluted.
mythology that was built here. That's what I did not like about this movie.
And I felt really bad too for Martin Freeman playing Everett Ross in this. So that side plot did not land at all for me. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus,
Yeah.
Louise Dreyfus. Oh my God, as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, and she's been showing up in a lot of stuff. She was in, she showed up in Black Widow. That was supposed to be her first role in the MCU, but that got delayed. So we first saw her in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. And no, we didn't see her
Falcon
in that. We
and the Winter
Falcon.
Soldier. But it was supposed to be called that at the end. Little fun fact.
Yeah, exactly. So it became Captain America and the Winter Soldier. But yeah, we first saw her in that, so she's in this, and we learned that Ross and her were married at some point. But I don't know. It just, none of that
And
really
is
landed
he
for me.
Thunderbolt Ross's brother?
I don't think so. I thought he was supposed to be his
Throwing
son.
that name around. But,
Yeah, I know, right? Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, who, if you know anything, they're going to be coming out with a Thunderbolts movie here as well, and he's going to be showing up. And they actually cast, who did they cast, Matt, as the new
what?
Thunderbolt Ross?
Well, I don't know, because John
Oh.
Hurt passed away.
John Hurt, was it?
Yeah.
But the big news a while back, Harrison Ford is actually
Oh.
going to take on the role.
Okay, so they're just recasting, huh?
Yeah, they did. So, yep.
Well,
He'll
that's too bad.
be
It was,
in that.
also a sad thing whenever
Yeah.
Mr. Hurt passed away.
Absolutely. And he did an incredible job in that role. Did a great job. We last saw him in Black Widow. That was his last performance as Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think
For
that
those
character.
For those of you that don't know who we're talking about, he mostly comes from connections to the Incredible Hulk, and so we saw him in the movie where Edward Norton was playing the Hulk, and then of course he's been in Captain America: Civil War as Thaddeus Ross, General Ross, as you might know him,
Yeah.
with the Sokovia Accords and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. So, and I just looked it up too, and both Thaddeus Ross and Everett Ross are characters, and they are not related in the MCU.
Just
So-
a lack of imagination from
Yeah.
Stan Lee.
Oh my gosh, guys. So, no relation from those two characters, but I thought that the subplot for that really didn't work all that well. And, then we got Riri Williams, who is Ironheart now, and she's going to get her own show in the MCU as well, played by Dominique Thorne. And I
Yeah.
thought she did an incredible job. I loved her personality. It was really cool to get to see her. I want more. And, I want to see her on campus at, I think she was at MIT, right?
She was. I was
Yeah.
really disappointed in the Ironheart side plot,
Ah,
and the fact that they used.
I love
her,
this. We're so different in this, in our takes on this.
The fact
great.
that they used her as a MacGuffin, like, oh, this is really a disservice to Ironheart. I mean, yes, she has her own show and all that's coming. I'm sure that they'll raise the character up far better than they did here. And I was excited about her introduction because I had not seen any trailers for this. I didn't know she was going to be in the movie. And so when they started talking about this scientist that was young and in college, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to introduce Ironheart here. This is awesome. I thought it was just going to be a little tease. Here's this girl, and she's got these plans, and she's a super genius, and she might build her own Iron Man suit one day. But then whenever it turns into this whole thing, and she's actually got the suit, and then they take it away at the end, and they just didn't give her much to do after those opening scenes. And then they threw her into the end battle. Of course she's going to be there because they need to display another element of CGI to these huge finales. But yeah, I was really disappointed that they didn't use her more or give her more to do than just be the MacGuffin that leads to this ridiculous reason that Namor has got to go kill the Queen of Wakanda and start a war. I thought all of that was just dumb. It didn't make any sense to me why he was throwing such a fit.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like there was just some definite cracks in the story, and yeah, why he had to kill this young girl.
Like he's got a
Because
prisoner there. It's obviously not a problem. Why don't you just keep her there if that's really?
or something, yeah. So
But
yeah, it was a little convoluted when it came to that as well. But they had to make Namor an anti-hero here as well, and they wanted to bring him out as being menacing. I think they did a very good job at showing him as being menacing,
yeah,
especially when he first comes into Wakanda unannounced there in the water, as you know, they're sitting there by the water. It's like, oh my God, that's like
yeah. Well, and I thought he did a great
it's
job. A little bit of trivia here. He was cast in the role without the ability to swim. He did not know how
nice.
to swim. In fact, when
Good thing
Ryan
he's got those
Coogler,
wings on his feet.
this is pretty awesome. He said this on Jimmy Kimmel Live,
Uh-huh.
but Teno Herrera or Huerta of Aztec origin,
Hmm.
and it's Aztec culture, so he very much had a tie-in here. Was very excited. Had a Zoom call whenever Ryan Coogler gave him the role and was talking to him about it. There was a pause in the connection on the Zoom call, and the connection came back as Ryan told him he had the role and asked him if he knew how to swim, and he said, "Well, I haven't drowned yet," and they moved on.
And that was,
And so then it became known that he actually did not know how to swim, and he was playing Namor, the
oh my gosh.
submariner,
I
and they
know,
had to
right?
fix that. So
Woo!
they had him out in pools with floaties and
Mhm.
trainers and all that stuff, teaching him
Mhm.
how to swim on
Oh
set.
my gosh. That's hilarious. I would kill to see some behind the scenes video of them doing
Yeah, yeah.
Namor with some floaties and everything.
But I mean, he does a great job. He brings a great amount of intensity to the role.
Right.
Really sells this as
Hmm.
a sympathetic villain. For me, I didn't get the anti-hero as much because at the end of the film, I'm thinking, well, he still killed the queen of an entire nation. So,
He
I
did.
mean,
Yeah.
that's going to be on the news at least. People aren't necessarily going to just,
Hmm.
cast that off or be, oh, cool, it's all right. They talked it out on that beach. So now
Yeah.
the,
He's definitely still not redeemed by the end of this because he still believes that like Wakanda is going to get attacked by the surface world, by
yeah,
other countries and whatnot, and like he is banking on the fact that Wakanda is just going to have to turn to them and everything, and that's ultimately what he wanted in this. He wanted an
right.
alliance with Wakanda, and he believes that he's going to get that. So he really his frame of mind, his character has not grown or shifted just yet.
Hmm.
Pretty sure they're probably going to save that for his own movie or another storyline down the
Yeah.
road and everything and
I,
redeem the character.
I think he's going to be kind of like a Loki, and kind of be
Could
like
be.
another one of these great
Yeah.
anti-heroes that go back and forth, change
Hmm.
alliances or allegiances, and we'll never really know where he's at in his,
Yeah.
if he's a good guy
And
or
so
a
the
bad guy.
so the kingdom, the civilization that he takes Shuri to, and Ironheart down there underwater was Tolokan was the name of it, and I thought
Not
that was very
Atlanta.
interesting. Not Atlantis at all, like we were talking about, and his name in this was Kukulkan. That everybody, his friends call him, and all of his enemies call him Namor. And
Hmm.
you realize that everybody's calling him Namor in this this show, and they
Nobody's
don't
calling him
change
by what he said at
Kukulkan.
the
Yeah,
beginning, which was
clearly.
Namor, but
Yeah,
they
not
all are
more.
choosing to mispronounce his name.
Hmm. And if you guys know anything from the comics, originally the name Namor was just Roman backwards. So they just flipped it because the Greco-Roman Atlantis influences and everything. So it was just a direct correlation with that. So they kind of had to retool his name and the origins of what his name was and everything. El Nino Sin Namor, the child without love. So
Right.
I thought that was okay, but I did feel like that was a little clunky, or like them trying
Hmm.
to fit that in, especially with Imperious Rex too, which makes no sense for him to say, and
Yeah,
with his
that was
culture
out
and
of the
everything.
blue.
I was like, okay, it's from the comics, and he likes to say Imperious Rex a lot. So, but
Yeah.
it didn't land for me at all too. But I love the design. I love the fact that we had a justifiable reason the Tolokan, I think is what they're calling their people now, for being blue outside the water. I didn't get this right away. Like when they're blue and they show up as blue, and then we see him in the water when he's explaining what happened with his mother. Everybody's in the water and they're not blue. And I'm like, oh, what's the deal with that? But then I realized, they can only breathe underwater, so they would be cyanotic outside of the water. So that would kind of make sense. So I thought that was really well done. A nice little detail in here.
Yeah, I liked that as well. And same thing, I didn't realize it till about halfway through what was going on. What about you, Chris? Did you understand like their mortality? Because it seemed like outside the water they could get shot and the bullets either bounce off or absorb, but then underwater they can get injured. I don't know.
They were still getting injured outside the water too, but I mean, like with vibranium,
because that girl dies. That's right.
Yeah, it was kind of all over the place when it came to that, and they explained, like, I knew this before going in, that they Ryan Coogler had addressed this and said that in the water, Namor is as strong as the Hulk and as impervious as the Hulk. Outside of the water, he is as strong as Thor. So this is a very overpowered character that basically won't get hurt at all in any situation, except for when his wings get ripped off at the end. Well, his wing, I guess.
Yeah, if you get him out in the sun much, then he apparently dries out like a fish. And
I got that because the idea there was, he absorbs oxygen through his skin, but since he was born into this and he didn't take the seaweed that was vibranium induced or whatever, infused, he could breathe like us, and he could also absorb oxygen through his skin in the water.
Yeah.
But how that equates to him getting stronger in the water versus outside of the water, I don't know. And for me, it's like I kind of wrestled with the physics, and this is, this is how it is in the comics as well, so I don't fault him for that. But just seeing tiny little wings on his feet, I'm like, how is he moving so fast through the air? With these tiny little wings.
Right.
The physics is all wrong. Like, that thing does not obey the laws of physics.
The wind.
Just like Captain America's shield. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, and that nice little 3D printer that they have in Wakanda that apparently can create life.
Right?
I know. Print a working flower plant, okay,
fun and interesting way to get around that, because in the last movie the heart-shaped herbs were all burned via Killmonger. He wanted to get them all gone, and like in the beginning of this movie, Suri wanted to remake this plant to save her brother, and she couldn't do it. But it's just
I never know why they go to these links, though, because, I mean, it could be much less unrealistic if they just relied on something like, oh, yeah, we clone these things, and we've been working on it for a couple years, or whatever. I mean, like, they won't...
And that's my problem with this. Like I said, with the vibranium, with the proliferation of vibranium being everywhere, it loses something. It loses its magic for me when it's not as rare. Same thing with like the super soldier serum. I had a problem with this with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's like, everybody's got it now. Everybody can be strong. So it's not special anymore. Same thing with this. It's like, okay, we can just synthesize this heart-shaped herb and we're good to go. We can just give it to everybody. Why are we not giving it to all of our soldiers? Why are we not giving it to everybody in Wakanda that's going to fight? I didn't understand that either. It's like, well, if you can synthesize it like that, give it to everybody.
And I didn't understand, because they're clearly, most of the civilization is half naked all the time. They've got like the headdresses and the necklaces and stuff. So how is it protecting them? I don't know, but maybe
I don't know either. So
the flour and the all that they ate. So it's a superhero movie, so we can't get we can't fault them too much for that.
And for me, it's like, we saw the Dora Milaje again, and Okayo, played by Danae Guerrera, or Guerrera.
I think you got it.
I think we got it here. But she gets disgraced because Shuri got kidnapped, and so the queen stripped her of her rank as general and everything, and we got to see that little storyline. I did not like the new design of those suits that Shuri made for, and neither
I
did
was right along.
okay.
Yeah, I agreed with the character. Like this
I did
looked
too.
ridiculous.
It looked very ridiculous and kind of kooky, and like she's flying around everywhere, and they're using like the Iron Man
Yeah,
point of view with those things, and I'm like, it doesn't look like that's an Iron Man suit or
it
anything. It's
looks
like
like cloth and metal. And
it,
I mean, I get they have to. Every single movie, they're bringing in new suits for some reason.
yeah.
Just to get through as many comic book designs as they can, and pay homage to all of that. And I understand it's an exciting part of these films, but sometimes these designs just aren't as attractive to certain audience members as they are to others. So in this case, they weren't, our particular
Yeah.
taste. But I do like they had a character in the movie that it wasn't their particular taste either. So
Yeah, I did appreciate that self-reference of that understanding that
Marvel
hey, this
does
is
that so well.
they do. They did that really great in She-Hulk as well. And also, like, one of the things I very much liked from the first Black Panther was M'Baku, played by Winston Duke.
Yeah.
Dude had so much charisma. He's been in other films and everything. I love that actor. He's awesome, and he did such a good job as M'Baku in the first Black Panther, and this time I feel like they nerfed him a little bit.
Yeah.
Because like they made him an advisor to Shuri, and like he was supposed to be there for her and everything. I'm like, that is like not what his character was like in the first one and in the comics too. This character always wants to take over. He wants to be the king of Wakanda, and they always have to fight against him. And he's he's kind of our anti-hero kind of guy that's on the fence, off the fence about whether or not he's going to support you or not.
Yeah.
And in this one, he was just there in the background. He really didn't add a lot to the story at all, and I felt like he deserved a lot more in this than he got ultimately.
Well, and I did like the couple of scenes where we saw him acting more as a big brother to Shuri and, asking for her advice.
I feel like you got to earn that though. Like I feel like that was unearned because like we didn't see those two characters together at all in the first movie, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, yeah, they have this relationship and everything, and
Yeah,
a lot of things happen off
a
scene.
third movie type of scene,
Right,
or
that's what I'm saying.
relationship arch. So, but
Yeah, I would have appreciated them keeping him as like this character that's like, I don't care what's happening to you guys in Wakanda and everything, and then coming to him in the mountains and pleading with them to let all of these Wakandans take refuge up there while this war was going on. I feel like that would have been a better situation for this character in possibly a third movie, bringing him in to develop that relationship a little more. I think it could have taken a lot more care with that. But we didn't get that. I feel like, I think a lot of the things in this, a lot of the story beats, a lot of the characters were really sped up and didn't give them a lot of time to just live in those moments and everything. And like I said, for me, I think you said it worked really well with you with Shuri, being that kind of on the fence, wanting to burn everything down and go against tradition and whatnot. I think that is a great way to design your character. I just don't think it was earned in this point. We needed more time with this character to understand her.
Because I read that this was the longest standalone Marvel movie yet. It's the longest Marvel movie, second only to Endgame at this point. So yeah, they had a ton of time. I think they focused too much on world building, which they had a lot to do just with the introduction of Namor. They could have just stuck with focusing on his character and Wakanda after the death of the king. And that's all we needed. We didn't really need all this extra stuff with Everett Ross or Ironheart or
Absolutely. You could have cut most of that stuff out there, but you're right. I think that, and this is the issue that Marvel has had in the past, especially with the second Avengers movie. Yeah, so Avengers Age of Ultron had this same exact problem. They put too many pieces to build this world up and all these things that were going to come afterwards that they didn't focus on the story at hand. And I think that becomes a detriment in these movies. Obviously, they did a better job with this movie than Age of Ultron and a lot of the other stuff that we're seeing out with Marvel, but there definitely is room for improvement, and we deserve a high bar when it comes to this stuff. Marvel has done amazing work in the past, and I want to see that continue in this. And just thinking about too, like the whole end plot and just the tactics that they use and the strategy of taking all of your Wakandan warriors out on a goddamn ship in the middle of the ocean where that the Tolakan are at their strongest. Why would you do that? It seems like such a bad idea to do that.
I'm thinking like we
It's
would
like-
have more of a chance against Namor here in Colorado and Idaho,
Right? Yeah.
than they would
Why-
out on that ship, which is
I know.
the weirdest shaped ship too. Like nobody
Yeah, it was
designs a
so
ship
tall.
built as a tall tower. That thing's gonna flop over in a minute. You know.
And then Riri Williams, yeah, just take her off into the desert. Yeah, go to that one place in Colorado where they have all the bunkers and everything in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And have Namor come to you. It's like,
Right.
Why do we do this? So yeah, it didn't make any sense. And I feel like too, it's like Wakanda is a nation too. This is what I would have loved to seen with this movie. Is we often see these nations portrayed as one central location in these movies. I would have liked to seen all different areas within this country, and maybe Shuri has to go around and like she's battling with the idea of becoming queen and everything. She's taking over for her brother. She's filling the mantle as Black Panther, and she's on the fence of whether or not she would be a good leader. And ultimately, she decides not to be. That's fine. But if she goes around the country too and just gets to know everybody, and then I don't know, I kind of wanted something else with that storyline too. And Wakanda, I want to see more of Wakanda in the culture as well.
I
we
would
only
have
got a
liked
taste of it.
to have seen exactly that, and I think it would have paid off much better for the introduction of the new Black Panther had they focused on Wakanda, because you know this person isn't just somebody in a suit.
No,
It's somebody that's supposed to be the leader of the nation, unite all of them. And I really felt like at a certain point in the movie, I forgot that we were going to get the introduction of Black Panther here. And
know,
it was
right?
like, oh yeah, we also have to get her into a suit. And then it was just kind of this afterthought. Like, yep, we got to figure out a way for her to have the flower. Okay, we'll 3D print it. Quick montage of how she gets that done. And then she's going to go have, you know, a cameo conversation with Michael B. Jordan. And I don't know.
And there we go.
Stuff like that was rushed. And it didn't have to be if we didn't cram so much world building stuff in.
Yeah. And one of the other things I very much enjoyed about the first movie, it was the soundtrack in itself, like how they use established songs from that time, as well as the soundtrack from Ludwig Göransson. I felt like the songs and the selections that we got in the first Black Panther were so on point. And I love both soundtracks, both the orchestral pieces as well as the standalone songs that all these artists had. I feel like we didn't have as powerful as the music wasn't as powerful this time around as it was in the first movie. And I don't know who to point to where, like, Ludwig Göransson is an amazing composer. I love this guy, but I feel like he didn't do as well with this one as he did with the original Black Panther. I felt like they didn't have that standout song and Shuri had like kind of that, like, I don't know, it was like a metallic sounding theme, which was supposed to indicate that she was more of a rogue type Black Panther, and you didn't know whether to trust her or whatnot. But I wanted that sense of, you know, uplifting, proud Wakanda nation song, and we get a little bit of that bop, 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 in a couple of places, but I just wanted more. I wanted
it's always the struggle
soundtrack
of sequels with that, because especially when you have an origin film with a great theme to the soundtrack, following that up is so difficult. I felt like that with Man of Steel, whenever they had to follow up from Superman the movie a theme that everybody is just born knowing. Even if you haven't seen the movie, you can recognize that soundtrack. And
you can.
You know, what Hans Zimmer had to follow up with in Man of Steel was very difficult, and he had to go a completely different route. And I felt same here. They had to give us something different sounding than Chadwick Boseman's theme, but they also had to deal with the grief and turmoil in the nation. It kind of combined all of that in a musical form, and it wasn't as memorable. I still liked it. I still loved the the strings and everything and the emotional scenes. And I really love kind of the one notes that they would hit and the more silent parts. I love the fact that they had the Marvel logo with just him,
Just Chadwick Boseman. That's beautiful.
no
I
music at
love
all.
that too. Yep.
Yeah, that was all great. But like you said, a very good sounding soundtrack, but just not as like recognizable themes as we had in the first one.
Yeah. And I feel like, this movie did as well as it could do with the circumstance and everything that they had to deal with through this, as well as COVID-19. The pandemic was raging while they were producing this movie. So all the limitations and struggles that they had to do to get around that kind of stuff with filming and everything else in production, I can't even imagine the headaches that and sometimes they get called off and they have to shut down production for a while, come back. That's got to be hard as an actor. That's got to be hard as somebody that's writing this stuff and being the director and picking up where you left off a few months before and dealing with all that stuff. It's just really hard for anybody.
So, as another thing that must have been irritating to the people that produced and made this film is the button scene, right? The button scene includes the introduction of yet another kid, another descendant. But I read up on this, and Black Panther was actually supposed to come out before Thor: Love and Thunder. And it would have actually premiered before She-Hulk even at the beginning of the summer. And so Black Panther's son would have literally been the first one that we saw on this kind of new wave of descendants that we've gone with Hulk's son in She-Hulk and Love in Thor: Love and Thunder. So I feel like they were kind of robbed of the impact of that button scene by Marvel themselves.
Yeah, and it was very hard too because Nakia, they had to explain why she wasn't there and everything, why she wasn't there during Endgame as well, and all this other stuff. And it makes sense, she didn't get blipped away, and she had a child. But I feel like, oh man, don't even get me started with this button. Like, I feel like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're redesigning the Black Panther, for Shuri, but at the same time, they have another, T'Challa coming up the ranks to be a male Black Panther at some point.
Yep.
I'm just like, okay, so you found a way to replace Chadwick Boseman with the character who's basically the character of T'Challa without actually having to recast, Chadwick Boseman's character. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know how I felt about it. I feel like, oh, okay, maybe this is something I could have brought up in another movie, but I just felt like it was eye rolling for me. I'm just like, oh, okay, sure. It was like really, and like you said, it's very poignant, Matt, bringing all that up. But we have seen these kids showing up in all these movies as replacements and whatnot.
So we're just
seeing all of it. So okay, it's like, okay, they're setting up 20 years down the road for the next wave, the next generation of Marvel movies. I got it. We get it. It's cool. But again, it's once again shoehorning another element into these things that's not focusing on the movie at hand, but rather telling a story from that's going to happen later on down the road, or explaining off a character off screen. I don't know. Yep. Not a fan, obviously. And for me, it's like, and I feel like I'm being very negative with this, guys, and I'm sorry, but I did enjoy this movie. These are all nitpicks from me, but this just goes to show you what an absolute light and amazing actor Chadwick Boseman was. I think that the only reason I have such any problems with Wakanda Forever, is just because of the level of elevation that Chadwick Boseman was able to bring to the first Black Panther movie. He did such an amazing job, such a charismatic actor, someone that you instantly like and enjoy seeing on screen, that elevates everything that they're in. I can't I can't say enough good things about Chadwick Boseman. And so just because he was so amazing at what he did, his absence has felt so much throughout this film, and just understanding the fact that we could have gotten him in this. I think that's what affects me the most, is like, and it's very sad for me because this actor was amazing and deserved more time in this character. He deserved all the praise, and we were robbed of this amazing talent way too early. And it was such a shock for me when he died too, and I think a lot of us too. And it's just, I feel that in this movie, maybe it's a little hard to watch just because I miss that actor that right now, and it's still, the grief is still too near, as they say in Lord of the Rings for me. But I feel that absence, and I can't enjoy it as much as I would, knowing what we could have gotten. And Ryan Coogler really, he was talking to Chadwick Boseman before he passed away and everything, and they knew, they had talked and everything. They knew that he was terminal. And he wanted to give him the script because he was rewriting the script, and he wanted to get his blessing. And Chadwick Boseman was like, I don't want to read it and everything. And so he honored that. And so he never got to read it, but that was like the last time they actually talked or something too. So extremely sad stuff. All that said, like, again, I think that they did as well as they could have done, picking up the pieces of this franchise and moving it forward. And bringing in a new villain, bringing in a new character, bringing in Namor, and there's lots of really good elements in this, so I very much enjoyed it. Is there anything else we should bring up before we move on into our ratings, brother?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it, and if you want to go into ratings, for me, I think I'm going to rate this movie a 7 out of 10. I liked a lot of it. I liked the introduction of a new culture into the MCU.
Me too. I always love that.
Yeah, I really liked all of the homage to Chadwick Boseman. I liked Shuri's storyline. I liked Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda and her storyline. There was a lot to like about this film. I just didn't like the inclusion of some of the world-building stuff, and I felt like the movie, kind of lacked cohesiveness because of it. What did you think?
Yeah, there were definitely some cracks in the story and everything that we're definitely showing with this. And obviously I've mentioned a lot of this stuff in the main review of my problems with this film. I think I'm still going to give this a 7 out of 10, just like you, Matt. It's going to be a 7 out of 10 for me. It's not a 10 out of 10, definitely, because of all the reasons I presented in this broadcast. It's just one of those ones that I believe could have been better with another rewrite or something, if they would have just shored up some of these plots as well. I actually didn't have a problem with Ironheart. I liked Ironheart. I liked the actor. It was all good. I'm excited to see that
I like
character
the
in the future.
And I like the character, though I did think it looked a little Ultraman at the end. Do you think the design of that suit?
Yes!
And I know it's comic book accurate, but
it's not. Ironheart's her armor looks very similar to Tony Stark's in the comics, and so they're taking another. They're taking it away from
with the face and stuff, like
little bit.
It has kind of that heart-shaped face, and
yeah, true, they do. So that design, the different colors and everything. So
right, it reminded me of the old Ultraman, and I'm like, oh man, this kind of looks a little weak, but that's how it is. So
that is how it is. So I did enjoy that too, and a little bit like Ultraman. That you bring it up. So cool.
Just see him going around battling a giant rat or something.
Right.
But anyway.
So there was definitely some strengths in this, definitely some weaknesses. So 7 out of 10 for me. And I do recommend that you go see it in the theaters. It's a good time. It's a fun little roller coaster. And so that's pretty much it for me.
Yeah, and a couple of announcements before we end this episode. So we've got some exciting stuff coming up. Aside from reviewing Willow, the movie and the show coming up, reviewing the end of Andor, and of course Rogue One, we are putting another gauntlet out there for the fans. If we get to 1,000 subscribers, we are going to start producing our own merchandise. And the first thing that we're going to be making is hats, because as you can tell, Chris and I love to wear them.
Yes.
And we'd like to make our own. And so the first 100 Fatherly Fandom hats off the shelf will be going to the fans that support us. We'll randomly be drawing 100 names out of that 1,000 subscribers. So if you're interested in that, we will give you updates as we move forward in the design of the hats and what they'll look like logo-wise, what type of hat, all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for more on that. And Chris, do we also want to introduce the other episodic contest that we're going to start today?
Oh, yes. So Matt's got a really fun game, and we're going to play it here right now, where there's 2 actors that get picked out of a shuffle of cards. You got some cards there, right, Matt? Can
Yeah,
you show
if
them?
you don't
There they
know,
are.
what I've been doing down here is shuffling these cards. It is the game Cinephile. Check it out. Of course, I need to mirror my video feed for you to see that. But
I can fix that in post.
yeah,
So,
but like Chris was saying, you pick 2 cards. They have a whole bunch of actors and actresses' faces and names on them, and then you try to connect them. So
Connect
Chris and
them.
I will try to connect 2 actors, and if you can do it in fewer steps than we do, then what do you get, Chris?
so what you get is you get to pick the movie that we get to review next. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, so this week's challenge, this episode's challenge,
All right.
I thought it fitting. I know it's supposed to be random, but I thought it fitting. At least we pick one actor from the movie that we just watched. We got Angela Bassett here, if you can
Ooh,
see
yeah.
the card.
Okay, Angela Bassett.
All right, and then Chris, I'm going to just kind of scan my fingers over the cards here. You just tell me when to stop.
When?
Right
Stop. Yeah.
here. Okay, I'm drawing this card out.
Okay.
This is Mr. Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks.
A
Okay,
younger
okay.
picture of Tom there.
One of my favorite actors. I think he's probably one of yours too, Matt. So
Absolutely. Yep. So Angela
Angela
Bassett.
to Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Which way are we gonna go? We're gonna go with Tom Hanks. We gotta
Well,
draw
we
these
try to-
connections together.
We try to meet in the middle.
Okay.
So we got to think of something that man, Angela Bassett was in. Did you see the Has Fallen franchise with Gerard
no.
Butler and all that?
Oh, that series? No, I haven't seen that.
Okay, so I know that she's in that.
gonna be
I
difficult.
think. Well, can we get Gerard Butler to Tom Hanks?
Yeah, can we? Okay. 300. Oh, again, Morgan Freeman's in that Has Fallen series,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it's
Yes,
Olympia Has Fallen that Angela Bassett's in, but
Okay, so we get that. So that character's to Gerard Butler. We get to Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman's my fail-safe in all
he's
of
in
these.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, we get to Morgan Freeman. We take him to our most favorite film, Shawshank Redemption. And
Yeah.
then from there,
So how
we can take a
2 steps?
2 steps. And then we, who directed Shawshank Redemption? That's Frank Darabont. What else did he
Frank
direct? The
Darabont
Green
directed
Mile.
Green Mile, and we got Tom
Tom
Hanks.
Hanks.
So what's
Boom!
that? So Angela Bassett in Olympus Has Fallen with Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption, which was directed by Frank Darabont. Frank Darabont directed Green Mile. Does that count as step number 4 or just 3 steps from
Yeah,
Angela
Green
Bassett?
Mile, Tom Hanks. So Tom
Yeah.
Hanks and Frank Darabont are connected by Green Mile. Yes, 3 steps. We did it in 3 steps. Can you
3
get it in
steps.
less?
Can you beat 3 steps from Angela
This
Bassett?
is why we're on here, brother.
And you guys have
Woo!
the internet at your disposal. We're just thinking about the top of our heads here. So
Right. Yeah, and so that I that's what I've been doing, right? That's part of the rules, right, Matt? Is you're not
yeah.
able to look anything up. So that's the way I've been playing. We played this earlier too with what do we do? Al Pacino and Clint Eastwood. That one was tough.
That took a while.
That one did take a while. So yeah, see if you can do it in less step, guys. Give us a shout out in the comments, and yeah, if you beat us, then and you have to tell us.
Yeah, put it
you
in
know,
the comments the chain that you get that's less. than
Obviously,
3.
we can't enforce the rules via the YouTube channel, so we're just gonna go with the honesty system here. So if you Boy Scout honor and whatnot, so if you can do it, you get to pick the next movie. We will rate it and review it and react to it as always. So thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for playing along with this one. And you can catch us on the internet at YouTube, right here on our YouTube channel, or Facebook or Instagram, simply at Fatherly Fandom. And we now have a podcast, guys, if you didn't know. The podcast version of the show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and basically anywhere that you can find podcasts out there. iHeart, you don't have to have a subscription, right? But you can also listen to our podcast right there, so you don't have to fill anything out or pay for anything and get it right there for free. So, yeah, check us out on all of those things. You can search for Fatherly Fandom in their search engines, and you'll find us. And as always, guys, from our families to yours,
Have a good one.
adios. Wakanda forever!